Morning light crept through the hospital window. I wheeled Leo onto the front lawn. He was 9, thin and pale from leukemia. His favorite red cap hid his thinning hair. He gripped the wheelchair arms. "Dad," he whispered, "do you think MrBeast will come?" I swallowed hard. My throat burned. "We'll try, bud, I promise." For 2 weeks, I begged online. I tagged MrBeast's team on every post. I emailed his charity address. Fans rallied. Local news ran Leo's story. Comments poured in. "Make his wish come true. Beast, please help." A volunteer film crew offered lights and cameras. A local pizza shop pledged free pies. Everyone joined Leo's final dream. Then the HOA letter arrived, typed in harsh black on pale gray stationery. No logo, just words. Notice: no commercial or promotional activity allowed on HOA grounds without prior approval. Application for MrBeast event and filming denied. Any violation will incur fines of $1,000 per day. Cease and desist immediately. My hands shook. I read it twice. Our yard, our driveway, even the path by the hospital garden fell under HOA control. Every possible filming spot was blocked. The volunteer crew could not enter. The pizza delivery driver was barred from our lawn. The local news camera had to leave. HOA Karen Peterson, our president, enforced the rule. No exception. I handed the letter to Clara. She stood, face ashen. We stared at the window where Leo sat. His eyes dimmed as he read the letter. He wiped his mouth. "They won't let them in," he said softly. His voice cracked. "My last wish, denied." Clara's tears fell. She dropped to her knees beside him. She hugged him tight. I stood frozen. Rage and sorrow warred in my chest. I felt the world collapse. That night, I sat by Leo's bed. He stared at the ceiling. I sang his favorite song, but he did not smile. He closed his eyes. "I'm tired, Dad," he whispered. "I just wanted one happy day." I kissed his forehead. "I know, Leo. I'm so sorry." Leo drifted into sleep. I watched the slow rise and fall of his chest. Tomorrow, he might not wake. I could not make Karen undo her cruelty. At dawn, Leo's color faded. He lay still, breathing shallow. Clara held his hand. Wes. I paced the room. The ringtone on my phone made me jump. It was the emergency contact from the hospice nurse. "He's slipping fast." I rushed to his side. His small hand clutched mine. "Dad," he breathed. "I forgive you." My tears fell on his arm. "I love you, bud." He squeezed my hand once and went still. Clara sobbed, burying her face in the sheets. I sat beside her, holding Leo's last warmth. The room felt empty. The balloons outside lay deflated in the grass. The streamers drooped on the gazebo. The "Beast, Please Come" banner sagged in the wet dawn. Neighbors gathered around the window. They held daisies and photos of Leo smiling in his cap. A few left letters. "We tried." I forced myself outside. The morning was misty. Dew weighed on the streamers. I tore down the banner, folded it slowly. Each crease cut me deeper. Clara joined me, her face streaked with tears. We pressed the banner into the grass and lit it on fire. The flames glowed orange, smoke twisting into the sky. We watched our last hope burn. I turned to the empty gazebo. "Karen Peterson," I whispered to the silent air, "you took my boy's dream and his last light. I'll make you pay." Clara took my arm. We walked back inside. The smoke trailed behind us. The morning after Leo passed, our house felt hollow. Clara and I moved like shades, carrying his wheelchair into storage, packing away his comics, his model cars, his red cap. His room, once alive with laughter, stood empty, walls bare, shelves dusted. Neighbors came slowly. Mrs. Ortiz brought fresh lilies. Mr. Chen pressed a casserole into Clara's arms. They whispered condolences, their eyes wet. I thanked them, voice flat. But the "no events" sign still loomed at the garden gate. Painted letters mocked our loss. It had to go. I stormed to the HOA office. The receptionist hesitated, then passed me through. Karen Peterson sat behind her desk, clipboard in hand, expression cold. "Remove that sign," I said, voice low, "or face legal action." Karen tapped her pen. "Bylaw 5.2 remains. No exceptions." I slammed my fist on the desk. "You killed my son's last joy. He died believing hope could visit him, and you denied it." She rose, anger edging her voice. "Rules protect community order. Your events threatened that." I leaned close. "My son's life was threatened by cancer. A dying child's wish is not a threat." I pulled out the media coverage. "Look, MrBeast offered, fans volunteered, hospitals approved, only you barred it." Her eyes flickered. She waved me away. "Good day." I left and filed suit next morning. Illegal denial of charitable activity, emotional distress, wrongful death negligence. I exploded Leo's story online again. Thousands shared. The petition surged past 10,000 signatures demanding Karen's removal. The local news picked up our lawsuit. HOA tyrant denies dying boy wish, blared the headline. Interviews showed Clara's tears and my plea for justice. Even MrBeast tweeted sorrow. Pressure built. HOA board convened an emergency meeting in the community hall. Neighbors packed rows of folding chairs. Clara and I sat front row, hands clasped. The new board president called the meeting to order. "We must address this tragedy," he said. "Bylaws cannot override compassion. We propose repealing 5.2. A chorus of yes rose. The petition was passed around one last time. Karen stepped forward, face ashen. "I followed the rules," she murmured. "I never meant for this." Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry." Clara rose and faced her. "Your rules silenced a dying child's laughter," she said, voice shaking but strong. "You owe our family more than an apology. You owe reform." Karen's eyes filled. She sank back. The board voted unanimously to repeal the bylaw and to remove Karen from her post. Neighbors cheered softly. Outside, we returned to Leo's garden. The no events sign was already gone. Neighbors carried daisies and balloons. They set up the volunteer film crew at last. No MrBeast, but local friends who recorded messages of hope for Leo's memory. That evening, we lit candles around Leo's favorite spot beneath the oak tree. We spoke his name aloud, shared memories of his laughter, his Lego creations, his stubborn bravery. Clara laid a hand on the gazebo, where it all failed before, and whispered, "We forgive." I felt a small crack of peace, but grief remained. The emptiness of Leo's last dream could not be filled. Weeks later, our lawsuit advanced in court. Expert witnesses testified on the cruelty of denying a dying child's wish. We had community support, legal precedent, yet the burn of loss haunted me. At home, Clara built a memory box for Leo. Letters, photos, the deflated wish banner now repaired and framed. She placed an empty seat by the window as a tribute. One night, I found her asleep beside that window, head resting on the seat, tears on the cushion. I carried her to bed, heartbreaking again. "I'm here," I whispered. "We'll carry him with us." Outside, winds stirred the daisies, stars winked above. Leo's garden would bloom each spring, his memory alive in petals and community resolve. And though Karen's bylaw was dead, her name still stung. I vowed to follow the lawsuit through. Her negligence would cost her everything, because no rule, no petty bylaw could ever justify leaving a dying child's heart empty of hope again. The morning light felt brittle as frost on withered daisies. Clara and I stood once more before the oak-shaded gazebo in Leo's garden, now christened Leo's Hope, the sign freshly carved by neighbors. His empty wheelchair sat beneath it, draped in his red cap and a single white daisy. We'd returned to memorialize his spirit, even as grief hollowed our days. Weeks of legal battles had passed since the HOA repeal. Our wrongful death suit against Karen Peterson finally reached state court. Yesterday, the judge granted our motion to unseal Karen's private emails and HOA minutes. We gathered here to reveal them to the community before tomorrow's hearing. Detective Ramirez arrived, holding a stack of printed emails. He handed them to Clara and me. "These show her true intent," he said softly. "Read them." Clara unfolded the top page. Her eyes widened. I peered over her shoulder. kpeterson@edenridgehoa.com to board at UNSEC 8 a.m. Subject: quiet enforcements. That boy's constant coughing and wheezing are disturbing my morning peace. He must be silenced. I'll block any special events until I see his family's tears. Clara gasped. She wrote that, about Leo's suffering as entertainment for her rule. Her face trembled. I exhaled. He wasn't even coughing in the garden. She wanted to punish us. Detective Ramirez nodded. We also found recordings she made on her phone, her laughing as she wrote the denial letter, calling it delicious cruelty. He tapped his chest pocket and produced 2 tiny audio files on a flash drive, enough for malicious intent. We can add criminal charges. A knot of anger twisted in my gut. Clara's hand shook as she held the emails. She weaponized our son's pain, she whispered. She murdered his hope. Neighbors trickled in, 10, then 20, then dozens, drawn by the posted notice. They formed a semicircle beneath the oak's bare branches. Children held stuffed animals, elders clasped hands. Silence fell as I stepped forward. I raised my voice. Friends, neighbors, Leo's suffering wasn't an accident, nor was Karen's denial a bureaucratic mistake. It was premeditated cruelty. I held up the emails. She harbored contempt for a dying child. She admitted it in writing, and she celebrated it. Clara stepped beside me, cradling Leo's red cap. "We asked for one small bit of joy for our son," she said, voice quivering. "We begged for MrBeast's kindness. Instead, Karen swore to see him broken." A murmur of outrage rippled through the crowd. Mrs. Ortiz's eyes filled with tears. "We trusted her to protect us," she said. "She betrayed every family here." A teenager raised a hand. "My sister's birthday party was shut down too," she said. "No events allowed. Our family got fines. We thought it was strict, but this shows she enjoyed our pain." One by one, more stepped forward. A mother whose wedding anniversary picnic was banned, a father fined for hosting a cancer charity bake sale, a teen denied permission to film a community play, all by Karen's hand. Each testimony wove a tapestry of cruelty. Detective Ramirez raised his hand. "We'll present these testimonies, the emails, the recordings tomorrow in court. We've added charges: felony cruelty to a vulnerable person, hate crime enhancement for targeting the sick, and racketeering. She abused HOA power for malicious delight." The crowd erupted in support, clapping, tears, nods. Someone produced petals, scattering them on Leo's wheelchair seat. Clara knelt to gather them. She touched each petal as if it bore his voice. As dusk fell, we lit lanterns around the gazebo. Each flame shimmered in the cold air, a tiny beacon of justice. Clara held me close. "He never got his wish," she whispered, "but his death sparked change." I kissed her forehead. "We'll finish this, for Leo, for every child." My voice broke. "Tomorrow, we show the court the darkness behind her rules, and we'll see her in prison, where she belongs." Under the lantern glow, neighbors formed a circle, hands linked. They sang soft lullabies in Leo's memory, voices trembling but hopeful. Among them, I felt the pain of loss, but also the power of truth. In the silent hush that followed, I heard Leo's laughter and the rustle of oak leaves. And I knew our fight would end only when Karen's cruelty was sealed behind bars, and our children's dreams protected by love, not bylaws. The courthouse was packed at dawn. Clara held Leo's red cap in a single white daisy. I carried the folder of emails and recordings. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. The prosecution opened with Karen's own words. Audio played, her laughter at Leo's plea, calls for his tears, boasts of delicious cruelty. The gallery winced. Then they read the June 2nd email. He must be silenced. Karen shrank in her seat, eyes darting. Next, neighbors testified in turn. The teen whose play was banned, the couple fined for a bake sale, the mother whose wedding picnic was shut down. Each spoke of the same cold disregard, the same enjoyment of others' pain. Detective Ramirez and the ADA laid out the racketeering charge. Karen had systematically abused HOA bylaws by filming, denying, fining for emotional gain, then coordinated with a private quiet enforcement group for pay. The recordings proved conspiracy. The emails proved her motive, cruelty. Then I took the stand. My voice shook as I held up Leo's red cap. "My son's last wish was a small spark of joy from a YouTuber who lifts spirits," I said. That wish denied. He died believing hope could be crushed by petty rules. I displayed Leo's medical chart, chemotherapy records, his final hospital bed photos. His suffering was real. His death was silent, but his fight ended with an empty gazebo and a sign that read, "No events allowed." Clara's testimony followed. She spoke of holding Leo as he whisper coughed, of singing lullabies he couldn't hear, of watching his laughter fade. She ended staring at Karen. "He died alone. You left him to suffer." Karen's defense tried to claim stress and overwork, that she'd misread the rules. But her handbook of posts, recordings, and board minutes shattered that. The judge held her gaze as the final arguments concluded. The judge rose. "Karen Peterson, your misuse of power, your intentional cruelty toward a terminally ill child, and your racketeering through HOA enforcement represent the darkest betrayal of community trust. This court finds you guilty on all counts: felony cruelty to a vulnerable person, conspiracy, racketeering, and emotional assault." He paused, voice low. "I sentence you to life in prison without parole." Karen's face crumpled. She gasped, mouth open in disbelief. Clara closed her eyes, tears streaming. Neighbors wiped their cheeks, some hugging one another. Outside, news crews swarmed. Clara and I stood under the oak tree, Leo's wheelchair beside us. I pressed her hand. "It's done," I whispered. She nodded, voice barely a breath. "He's at rest now." That evening, we returned to Leo's Hope Garden. The gazebo stood empty, lit by lanterns hung by neighbors. The daisies bloomed white and pure. Children placed stuffed animals on the wheelchair seat, Leo's friends honoring him. I knelt and placed Leo's red cap atop the seat. Neighbors formed a quiet circle, hands linked. We sang his lullaby, voices soft but determined. As the last note faded, I looked up at the oak's branches, leaves rustling in the breeze as if whispering Leo's name. Though his wish was denied in life, in memory, he shone brighter than any promise ever could. Under the lanterns, I whispered, "We'll carry your hope, son. Always." And in that moment, I knew justice had found its place, and in Leo's name, no child's final wish would ever be left to suffer again. The end.